And I heard another voice from heaven saying, Come out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plagues. For her sins have reached into heaven, and Elohim hath remembered her plagues.
Thank you, everyone, for coming to the call, Exiting Babylon, Correcting Your Status.
Marshall,
Tonight we're going to...
One thing real quick. I'm gonna for all the people that got feedback coming through their lines, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mute you real quick and then unmute you and let you know that you're the one that's causing the disturbance. And if you don't mute yourself, Paul, I'm gonna have to wind up muting you for the rest of the call. So if you guys understand what I'm saying, please go ahead and take the opportunity to mute your own self right now. And if you got feedback coming through or noise coming through your line, I'm going to have to mute you. So not doing it to be a pain in the butt, but just so we can not have a constant interruption going. Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's always a good idea to mute your line until you're ready to speak, so we don't have the background noise while others are talking. These calls get really filled up with a lot of people, and we don't like to do the, muting everybody, because then you have to call back in to get on. So please mute your lines and yield the floor when you're done talking. Do not interrupt the speakers on the call. Wait until they yield, and then ask if you may. And also there is if you hit *6, it will put you into the queue of the call, so we'll know to that you're up and that you have questions or comments. So with that said, I also wanted to ask you to please not block your phone number on the call. We have a lot of infiltrators and people that like to cause trouble to us, so we like to keep track of all of the call-in numbers as we share this extremely valuable and sensitive information. So please don't block your phone number on your call. And so thank you again for coming on to the call, Exiting Babylon, Status Correction, where we are sharing information from many different sources from people who have been working on correcting their status in America to get out of the matrix, basically, which is what Exiting Babylon is all about. Tonight we have Jackie Fig, who is an amazing lady, and she has truly learned how to exercise her right to travel. I'm sorry?
I said, this is Thomas. Thank you.
Oh, and so anyway, Jackie was born in London, England, and between 1981 and 1986, she was a researcher and editor with a company called Mead out of England, who paid her off and wanted her to come back to work later. She bought a world trip ticket and started traveling, and met a bad boy in Huntington Beach who apparently gave her every reason to find out what was really wrong in this system that we're in, and began a real journey for her. And she's been traveling since 2003 without a driver's license, without insurance, and so forth. And she's got some really, really good information to share with us tonight. And so with that, Jackie, are you ready to give us the lowdown?
Hi. Yes. Yes, the bad boy's great. Yes. So around 2003, I'd been having some trash problems with the local city of Fontana in San Bernardino County down here in Southern California. And finally I kind of had enough of what they were telling me, and so I went and read the ordinance and discovered it didn't say what they told me it said. And, it was pretty funny because Bob, the code enforcer, I then discovered, he knew it didn't say what he was telling me it said, and he was kind of annoyed with the fact that I actually bothered to read it, and it caused me no end of problems. But, it kind of got me thinking. I kind of didn't have money that year, and it was going to be really hard for me to kind of get on the road, and I had these kids I had to get to school, and so I read the vehicle code and discovered that it didn't apply to me. And I began a series of letters with I think there was like 6 of them, the Department of Motor Vehicles, the California Highway Patrol, the Attorney General's office, the governor, the Commissioner of Insurance, and the Department of Motor Vehicles. So I think that's 6. I did also send a letter to the DOT, but they kind of didn't really want to, hear about it. They sent me back my letter. I almost received it the day before I sent it. It came back so fast. So anyway, I kind of closed them out with an administrative process, and I was literally removed from the system. So I was no longer in it. My car was no longer in it, and for about 2 years, life was beautiful. Yes, nothing but flowers and and unicorns and rainbows, and then I started to have some other issues with my bad boy, and I happened to embarrass an officer in front of like 7 rookies, and at that point he said, "If I see you on the road in that green car, I'm going to have it towed." And the very next morning I was towed, and that's really when kind of some issues really started, because they discovered that neither myself nor the car was in the system. And they're like, I know her, I know where she lives, we gave her a ticket a few years ago. So they literally went through the records, located the ticket, and put me back into the system and the car. So I was, towed around 9 a.m. that morning, and by 5 p.m. they'd managed to go through the records and found a ticket on me. And they were so proud. We found it, so that created a whole bunch of other problems for me. And as a result, I've kind of learned a lot. So, and I've been to a lot of court cases, won a few, tied a few. I won't say I lost one, but, I had like 5 driving without a license. They would see me and just stop me no matter wherever I was and cite me, and it became like a running joke. And they would try to arrest me, and I kept getting out, and they couldn't work out what was going on. At one point, the sheriff asked me if I was working undercover for the Fontana PD, and Fontana asked me if I was working undercover. So it was an interesting understanding that I kind of, came to. So I don't know if you have any questions.
Yeah, what happened after that? I mean, you actually have documents so that you can go repossess your vehicle if they do that, right?
Yes. So back in 2005, when I got impounded, my car got impounded. Actually, it was earlier than that. I had my first impound around 1995. It was just after the Safe Streets Act came in. I believe it was 95, maybe 98. But anyway, it's when that first came in. So, I kind of had some experience with that. And around 2005, they impounded my car, and I went and repossessed it. I'd read a code in California, and it was California Vehicle Code 4022, which is basically, a repossessor doesn't have to have registration or anything. So I went to the impound yard, and I said, "I'm here to repossess a car," and they're like, "Did you bring your," and I'm like, "My what?" So they explained to me, "You need a repo order and a hold harmless." So I said, "Oh, I must have left them on my desk. I will be right back." I ran home, looked up what that was. I created a company called iRepo.com, and within 3 hours I had repossessed my car off the lot, and that was pretty funny. But yeah, I made the mistake of then doing a victory lap 2 victory laps around the police department, thumbing my nose at the cameras, which I really don't recommend. But it did feel good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I bet that didn't go over real well with them. What? She did what?
It didn't go over very well. They were not very happy with me. But yeah, so recently we've kind of set up with a company, and well, it's not a company, it's an association as such, and we've opened that up to help other people. I'm kind of sick to death of this civil, the civil, takings. We need to push back on that. I mean, it's killing us, So a few years ago, Ken and myself, Ken's from up north, Northern California, he came down here, and we kind of got together about 5 years ago, and we realized that between us, we had some pretty good, processes, basically, to help people get out of the system, to be able to get, bank accounts, traveling, even if they work, which is a, terrible 4-letter word, but if you have to have a job, we were able to kind of help you to avoid, like a lot of people have past due, IRS bills and stuff, and it's really paralyzing them. They're unable to work, unable to just go anywhere, unable to do anything, unable to have bank accounts, and so it's killing people. And so that's what we kind of set out, was to assist people with getting back on their feet and out of the system. And it's not perfect, but it does actually work for now. Until we can, if there's enough of us to actually get out of the system, then they're going to have to provide for us. Right now, we're still an anomaly to them. It's still the odd ones. Some officers still have not come across some of us yet, which is kind of hard to believe, because we are considered the biggest threat to the United States, because we're thinkers as opposed to like the Bloods and the Crips. We actually think. I remember reading something by Gray Davis that said, if we're in jail for 5 years or less, we should be considered armed and dangerous with a pen. So, that was like a Warren Commission that was actually done, and it considered our groups. And it's quite an old report, but, that really stuck in my mind, that they do consider us to be pretty dangerous. So we do have to be careful. But, so you can repossess your car back, but you have to do that through a legal owner status.
Wow. So that was in, 2003, 2004-ish? When?
By now we're about 2005 or so. Yeah, by the time, it was kind of a slow process for me, because I didn't have anyone where I could, see that they had done it before. I didn't know any other groups or any other people. I was kind of by myself, and I did all my own research. And then, it was really great, actually, when I kind of came out, and I was like, wow, there's other people I can read, because I actually come to the conclusion that there was something wrong with me. And then I about 2008, I discovered all these other people that were doing this too, and I was not alone. In fact, I was amazed at all these things that were going on. And yeah, but because I had to do it by myself, it was a slow process, very methodical, and I wanted to make sure I closed out each of those agencies. And remarkably, I did get what I asked for, and that caused me some issues. So when Ken came down from up north, and he had simply done the DL-142, which is the cancellation of the driver's license. There was actually a provision in the code for them to do that, or there was one of their forms to do it. It has a different effect. Whereas me and my car was completely removed, and if you like, we had no protection. We were just out on our own and waiting to be picked up. In Ken's case, he got something called the order of cancellation, and, he didn't know how valuable that was until I saw it. And I'm like, oh, my God, that would have saved me. Dealing with cops on the street, one of my biggest problems was them telling me, no, you just forgot to renew it. And I would have to argue with them, no, I canceled it. No, you forgot to renew it. So the presumption was, here I am found driving, and I just forgot to renew my license. So, when I saw that, I'm like, my gosh, that's the one thing that's, kind of caused me problems. So, yeah, it's around that kind of time.
What was that form again that you said? It was a.
It's really, yeah. So, we're going to start having some how-tos, direct how-tos up on our website. But for this, there is a form in California. It's called a DL-142. It's like a 2.5 pages. It repeats. So there's a top and a bottom. You kind of cut in the middle, but it's the same thing, top and bottom. And it's the cancellation of your driving privileges, basically. And that's a good form to use to actually cancel the driver's license or canceling your driving privilege. The number always remains open like any account does. So the account remains, open for settlement and whatever not, but the actual, you've canceled your part in that. So, but what you have to make sure is when you take that form in, you receive a file stamped copy back. That's really, really important. And this is where, I hear a lot of people that get into problems. They have no evidence that they have canceled it. And then what happens is time elapses, they get caught traveling, and it's presumed that they're driving. And then they end up with a suspended license, and then you get into this mess that just needn't have happened if you then have, if you have evidence of the cancellation, and then after that there's a document called an order of cancellation. So if you like, I'd like to read that to you, like what it says, so you kind of get an idea. So this comes from the Department of Motor Vehicles. This one happens to be dated November 7th, 2006. And this is Ken's one. So this is an order of cancellation, and it will say, this letter acknowledges your request to cancel your California driver's license. We appreciate the thought and consideration used to reach the decision to give up your driving privilege. Your license has been received, and our records have been updated to reflect the cancellation. If you wish to obtain a California identification card and have not already done so, you may apply at any Department of Motor Vehicles office, and that's from the Department of Motor Vehicles. So you kind of get that gist from there. There's a deed that you've done. There's consideration for that deed, and they're acknowledging the deed. So, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, I would not have had all the problems. Yeah, that's.
So that's what you carry with you now.
That's
in case you.
Yes, that's what Ken carries with him, and there hasn't been any problem. I carry something called a functional equivalent, which is, my own style identification card. So,
okay.
And I've been very successful with that. I've even gone on to jail property, like around 2007, it must have been, 7 or 6. I had to pick up my ex at the jail, and I went to go pick him up, and I didn't realize that, the tags were no good at that time, and I had lost my license, physically lost it. So when the officer, asked me, can I see your papers or whatever not, I thought it was funny. He didn't think it was funny, but I was like laughing about it. You wouldn't believe this, I'm kind of telling him, and he's like, this is not funny, But I said to him, well, you know what, I do have this with me. And I showed him this little card that I had that said, I give myself the right to drive, and it had a picture of me on it, a thumbprint. And he kind of scratched his head and called his supervisor, and ultimately had to let me go. It was really remarkable. By the time my ex had come out, he caught me asking for the ticket. I was demanding the ticket. No, give me the ticket. And he's like, no, I'm going to let you go. I'm going to be nice. As soon as he told me he was going to be nice, that's when I kind of flipped out a little bit, because it's like I just proved to him he had no right. So, it was, I don't know, kind of things we go through. But I had 4 kids there at the time with me, and it created. The guy couldn't believe it. He goes, I've been giving out tickets for 10 years, and I've never seen this before in my life. And, I had to, concede. I said to him, well, the only thing was you did have the right to search my car, only because when I came on your property, it says there's a big sign up there that kind of says, your car is subject to search. And I said to him, if I had that sign at my house and you came on my property with your car, I would have the right to search your car too. And he was like, this is all unbelievable.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Well, part of what we're doing is also educating those as we go, right? I mean, some officers are actually open to these understandings or comprehensions of things, and then some of them, of course, are not.
Yes, yes. The interesting thing was when I had to go in and, we all went inside to, while my ex was coming out, and I came back out, and he had, 3 kids on the, sitting on the side of the road where I refused to sit, and, he was giving them a citation because I was thinking, oh, he's going to be reformed. I've enlightened him, and, he's going to quit his job. I mean, I had this romantic idea. Well, that didn't happen. He was immediately harassing somebody else. And the funny thing was my ex had promised these guys that were getting out of jail a ride. So I used to have this, a Toyota truck with a camper shell. And so I had 4 kids, a bunch of guys, and my ex all in the car, and then they have to push start my car, and the car's kind of right behind the cop, and he didn't want to look, So I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe, we got out of there with, unscathed. So, so that was really, that was actually really a telling, contact right there. It was, I mean, he contacted, I was on their property, so, that was huge. That was actually one of my biggest successes. So, it told me a lot.
Jackie, if I may?
Sure.
This is Dominic.
Hi, Dominic. How you doing?
Oh, all right. How are you? Glad to hear you're on the call. In fact, I just filled out today an affidavit and right to travel and sent that off to the recorder's office to have that recorded. Okay. And I plan on sending a copy of that to the Department of Motor Vehicles. Would you suggest that I do something else along with that?
What are you trying to achieve?
I'm trying to achieve the right of travel without dealing with the DMV. Okay? And
let me just correct a little mindset right there.
Okay.
Nobody gives you that right. This is, I think, one of the issues that many of us have. We're coming from the negative and trying to get into the positive. It's the other way around. You're standing in freedom, and they're constantly giving you offers. And plus, you keep accepting those offers. For instance, they put an offer out there that you can have one of their driver's licenses. They make it really easy. You just got to lie on the form and say, yeah, I'm a California resident. Yeah, I'm a U.S. person, or whatever else it is that they require nowadays. Yep, I'm willing to give up my blood, my car, and everything else for you guys. So what that is, and I don't refer to us as being sovereigns, but we are members of the sovereign body. That is a member of the sovereign body decreeing the California Vehicle Code as your law, and you are asking them to enforce it on you. So if you don't want that, then you need to fill out the DL-142 and get rid of that contract. You can also revoke, rescind. There's other things, but this way has already been set up for you to do it. And then the important thing is to ultimately track down the order of cancellation when you do this. Don't let it just ride. You have to go and ask them, you show proof that you've canceled it. They may even give it to you right there at the desk in some places. It really depends on where you go and who you're dealing with. Each one of those is like a little mini judge, and they dictate, whether they like you, how they feel, or what they know. There's all different, there's a different wide spectrum of issues that could come into play there. But when I've sent some people back to go get the order of cancellation, it was really easy for them. They just walked in there, showed evidence of the cancellation, and they got this letter that was an order of cancellation. And that's it.
All right. Now, did you physically go there and turn in your plates and your driver's license to them?
Interesting thing. You really should. You really should. But where I went to, they refused to give me a receipt. So I handled it in slightly different ways. When I read that letter, it literally states in there, your license has been received and our records have been updated to reflect the cancellation. It's their property. Give it back. Nostalgia's nice, but just give it back. And it is an important aspect of that. Mine happened to be lost, so but I had canceled me and the car, removed us from the system before that ever became an issue, like 2-3 years before that ever became an issue, because I didn't know about the DL-142 back then. So,
if I may,
when you say you canceled you and your car, how did you cancel your car?
I did an administrative process. So I actually did a series of letters, like I said, to those 6 officers, and I went through the vehicle code. I'd read it a couple of times by then, and sorry?
Oh, I'm not sure what happened there. Are you back, Jackie?
Oh, sorry. Did I lose you? Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you.
Yes. I read the vehicle code a couple of times, and I, highlighted areas that proved that, I wasn't the person under the code, that I was not participating in a regulated activity, and that, that the only reason I was having an issue having to renew it at that time, I didn't really have any tickets or anything, was because I had requested, I had accepted that, I had accepted a driver's license and I had accepted registration. So I wrote to them and I ultimately got my car removed from the system, and I was no longer in the system. Like they have the computer system. Neither one of us came up in that system. So, we were.
Nice. So since 2003, what have your experiences been?
They've been varied. I said on the video, at one point I had bail for $920,000, and that was like 5 driving without a license. And it was pretty funny because every time they arrested me, I would get out. Basically because of the way I signed, and that went on for like a couple of years, and it would.
Hold on now, no, wait, before you go any more. You said you kept on getting out because of the way you signed?
Oh, yeah, that's the interesting thing. Yeah, so around 2004 or so, I actually had a UCC on file. I am I have the power of attorney for the fiction. There's a peace treaty. There's various documents that were on file, and one of them allows, the power of attorney allows me to act on behalf of the fiction. So whenever I sign anything to do with the fiction, I always sign as the authorized representative for the fiction. So this is why they had to keep letting me go, and ultimately, that's when they wanted to know if I was working undercover, because they didn't really understand why they had to keep letting me go, just that each time they had to let me go. So one time I was set out so fast that, they'd arrested. I was going through a divorce at this time, so every time I went to appear in the divorce, traffic kept showing up to arrest me, and it was quite a farce. Of course, my ex loved seeing me, handcuffed right outside, escorted through the crowded halls, and I would make the point, I'm a political prisoner. So, basically, I got out so fast I was for the afternoon session, which really kind of annoyed the judge.
Oh my goodness! So when you signed things as the authorized representative, does that just they just back off?
Well, what that means is basically I'm not that person you're looking for. I'm only the authorized representative for that person. So, and this went on 5 times. One of the first times I did it, one of the bailiffs in the, or what they called at the jail, the sheriff's at the jail. But anyway, she got really ticked off, and she was like yelling at me, telling me I need to sign properly, and this time you did a sign. And finally I said, well, what do you mean in this country? That sounds prejudiced to me. And ultimately I had like about cops all around me in a circle, and they're yelling at me. And I'm like, just because of the way I sign. And then one of them goes, I am sick of hearing you say that. You can sign with an X, you can sign it. And then he's given me a whole list of stuff that you can sign. And I look at this one cop and I go, see? So they all backed off, but it was pretty funny. So, yeah, it's because of the way I signed. So, yeah, it does. Yeah, you're qualifying your signature. You should always qualify your signature. Let's put it that way.
Did you do anything else besides the authorized representative? Did you do all rights reserved, or?
I have used a few others. I do like to push buttons and do tests. So one of the best ones I ever had for a ticket, for instance, was good Lord, it just went right out of my head. Non-assumpset, which is, basically I'm not accepting this contract. These are terms I don't understand, or I haven't been made aware of the terms. And so that one was really interesting. I went into the traffic court, and at that time I had the commissioner there, and my answer to him was, you don't have jurisdiction. And he says, I assure you I have jurisdiction. And in this certain tone that kind of sends shivers down your spine. And see you guys.
Lord.
And then,
in other words, I assure you, I'm a psychopath, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah. I mean, the whole room kind of shudders, and I'm like, and I could feel, and I was like the first one on calendar, so the room's full of like 60 people, like staring at me, and I could just feel all these eyes behind me, and so then this bailiff starts jumping up and down, and she goes, she's refusing to sign, because I didn't sign there's a document that they handed you when you walked in, which was, supposed to let you know what your rights are. And I knew that I don't want services, so I'm not going to sign this document because that's what allows them to hear the case. So, and so I had to qualify that. It's not that I'm refusing to sign. I want to know what the deal is first, And then they're like, get her out of here now. And so actually what happened first was a woman came from the back that was a translator, and she starts talking to the clerk at the front about the weather. So then I realized that they were pulling a distraction. This bailiff, by jumping up and down saying she's refusing to sign, I was letting everybody know that if you didn't sign that agreement, he couldn't hear the case. Anyway, that bailiff was later fired. She was gone. Never saw her again. That was the last. And believe you me, I went to that court a lot of times.
Wow.
Yeah, she was gone. So that was, part of their scheme. And so then they took me into this other courtroom, and it was really dark. And I sat in there, and then the bailiff says, the court shall now come to order. And I'm looking around. There's no disorder. I'm the only person in there. And then the judge kind of walks in with a sandwich, and he's pissed. It's lunchtime, and he's got this, this woman who's just being difficult for everybody. And so he starts, and I'm just in it, lips with him, not really hearing what he's saying, because I'm thinking, this guy don't have jurisdiction. So then I'm thinking, dare I say it? So, as soon as he gave me a chance to say something, I go, I don't think you have jurisdiction. And he goes, I assure you, in exactly the same tone as the other one did. So I knew that was part of their training. So that was pretty funny. And then he looks at the ticket and he goes, you refused to sign it, or you didn't sign the ticket. That's right. He says, you didn't sign the ticket. Case dismissed. He was pissed. So that was one of the best ones. That was, actually, I did have another good one. I'll tell you another story that was really cool. It kind of cool. So another one, I did an acceptance for value. The judge, it was a judge that I kind of had seen before and had a somewhat respect for. I mean, he was fairly fair kind of judge. Well, anyway, I gave him a conditional acceptance. I had his oath of office there. I had this beautiful acceptance with a registered mail number on it and all this kind of fancy stuff, and a UCC-1 filed as a lien, which I don't recommend people doing. I have been fortunate; other people have not, and I don't know what the difference is. And I hate to think it's just because I'm a foreigner. Maybe they don't have those same, clutches on me like they do other people. But, I have been remarkably fortunate in some of my dealings. So I had this $10 million lien against him and the court. And you could see, he starts me how it's kind of going to be, and then I'm like, I go, I tried to file this at the clerk's office, and he goes, give it here. I go, but they refuse to take it. He's like, give it here. I go, are you sure you want this? He goes, give it here, bailiff, go take that from her. So it was pretty funny. So he takes my conditional acceptance, and he's got it in front of him, and then all of a sudden you can see he starts paging through it, and you can just see his brow start sweating, and he's like starting to fall over his words, and then finally he's like, he starts like yelling about something. I go, look, Your Honor, I'm not here to argue. I've given you my acceptance. I agree to everything you guys are saying. I just need this, this, and this for my records. And we can get out of here today. I mean, it was very simple. You know, it's a one-pager. I do a one-pager. And you could just see the look on his face. They postponed the hearing. There was a hearing set up like 10 days later. They postponed that to 20 days later. And I kind of knew something was going to go on. So 10 days later, they actually held the hearing and without me. Take care. Thank you. I had a hearing without me, and I won. And so that was pretty cool. I went back in 20 days, and the clerk told me, well, you can't go in there. The judge doesn't want you in there.
That is so funny.
So, that was one of my favorite experiences in court anyway. So,
and that was the accepted for value.
And that was an accepted for value. Yeah, it was a really simple accepted for value. Yeah. So, yeah.
Wow.
But not everybody has, I have this idea that there are hidden agreements, contracts, indebtedness, whatever it is. There's something that they seem to know about different people that come up. And, I can see two people may have exactly the same ticket, do exactly the same thing, and there'll be two different rulings. And, that to me really interesting on why these statistics are different from people. So, but definitely the signing, does make a difference, but you should have something on file. So I did notice whenever they did, take me to jail when they do the beginning part, they would check. So they literally take your stuff and they obviously send it somewhere, and there must be an attorney somewhere saying release them or not release them or whatever not. At one time I was kind of punished. I was kept in the release tank for extra length of time, and they kept calling everybody else out. So they did try and mess with me a few times, but but ultimately, I would get out. So
So can I ask you, did you do UCC filings that included, your secured party creditor?
Security agreement, yeah.
Yeah, and then you've got the
and I got to say, I know a lot of people did not have success with them. I've had numerous successes. Certainly enforcing the power of attorney has been one of them. I've also used it as a basis in a couple of cases that I've had, and I've done administrative processes against the county, for instance, and other city of Fontana, various other people, and then filed those as foreign judgments, and had very interesting kind of responses where, I had in federal court where they just sat there for 10 months and ultimately refused to rule on it. They refused to dismiss it, and they refused to rule on it. So kind of stalemate situation.
So as far as I got into all of that, and that was to me a big piece of the whole thing, because you need to be able to have that standing that you've done your filings or your recordings, right, in a logical place, which is the UCC in your state, where you make up your security agreement and your hold harmless agreement, and there's multiple other documents in there.
Yeah, power of attorney. Yeah,
right.
I think there's 6 documents or so, and I've actually had 2 on file. And one of mine I think was 7. I added a peace treaty to it. And there's always this idea now that that's probably not a good idea, but for me, it's actually served me pretty well. Not just the signing thing, which made a difference, but like I say, a couple of court cases. Also, when you repossess a car, that's the standing that allows you to do that. So by having a security agreement, I actually use, like I say, an association as the association that is the legal owner. So I have a security agreement now with an association. Although I was able to successfully repossess my own car originally, once the cops were alerted, there was a stop put on it, like anyone else that kind of tried it. didn't have as much luck as I did, and so we later developed a process. Ken and I worked on it to help others, and so we created the association to do that, because when your name's not on it, it looks better. It's you take any company, you take a bank, for instance, they generally have a leasing company which leases them the desks and all the rest of it. It's really them, but that's so we've just done the same sort of thing. We've created a lien company.
Okay.
Or a lien association.
So basically, you put your car into an association.
Well, that's kind of interesting. So, yes, we do associations, and the reason we use associations as opposed to trusts require you to have a car in the name of the trustee for the trust. So it's usually held in trust for, it's an ITF type thing. So usually the trustee's name is required to be on the property. The unincorporated association is able to hold property in its own name, so your name's not on it. So that is a much better relationship, when you're dealing with, Officer Plod down the street who doesn't understand these things and doesn't understand the idea that, there's a fiction and then there's you and then there's all different layers. You could be a trust or, corporation or whatever it is. So this gives you that arm's length look that they can kind of handle and not get, overly problematic about. So
no, I see what you're saying. It's very smart, very smart. I'm not aware of your website. Would you give us your website address?
Sure, and we've had some issues getting it up properly. It's called internallydisplacedpeople.org. So let me explain that a little bit. Internally displaced people. When you understand, and you can look at it for either way. Either we are internally displaced, or they are internally displaced. It really doesn't matter. There's a displacement that's gone on with the law. The law typically applies to the territories, and we're not in the territory, so they're constantly trying to revenue us into their, territorial place of, where they can actually exercise their jurisdiction. So that's what we looked at. We looked at the displacement that's going on and the revenuing that's going on. And, I don't care what subject you're looking at, usually there's that is occurring at every level of the law, because they can't make law for us. And they say that because, we may have organized the government as such with the creation of the Constitution or even other documents and laws or codes, not laws so much, but we never organized the people as such, and we're not meant to be organized. We keep looking for our forms, for our organization, for our, where do we register, where do we have a license? We don't. None of these things, each time you start looking through these things, you come to the realization that you're not in that venue, you're not that person, and the property that you have is not the regulated, it's not participating in a regulated activity. Typically, property is not the thing that's taxed, it's the activity. So you're looking at the usage. It's the usage of the property that becomes taxable. So, that was kind of a big revelation. So we had internallydisplacedpeople.org, and interestingly enough, there was a government, it's actually Brookings, the Brookings Institute. They're I don't know what you call them basically, but they do a lot of trend setting for the government, all sides of the aisle, kind of keep an eye on their stats and all their plans for the future. The Brookings Institute had already reserved internally displaced persons.org.net.com. So that was kind of that was kind of an interesting one. They haven't done anything with it yet, but they've reserved it. And so what I'm finding is, there's been a war. It has really been declared. There's a war on the people, there's a war on poverty, there's a war on drugs. They keep declaring these wars on us. But technically, it feels undeclared. No one's really recognizing it as the mixed war that it is. And, we feel like refugees. I mean, if we were outside our country, we would actually be getting some sort of recognition and some assistance in what we're feeling and what, validation for what we're feeling. And we're not, because we're displaced internally. So that's kind of what that was about. So
That is really smart. That is really smart.
Oh, thank
and
you.
Very accurately put, I would say, because when you're standing up for your rights, which is extremely important, in the world we live in today, as hard as it is, as scary as it is important that each one of us, pick different things that we can do to help, to help move along. And the right to travel is one of those things. It's a pretty big ticket item, yet on the grand scale of things, it actually is very small. But by learning how to do that, you empower yourself to learn how to stand up for other rights. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. We have a new one coming up, which is really, it's kind of infuriating. So they're closing the border. I mean, you can see this noose getting tightened. So we've helped a lot of people go get passports with no social security number. We live not far from San Diego, and so we would go to the passport office with people and get them on the same day. So, and we've been doing that for a few years. Well, just recently they passed a new law, and despite all the laws under the USC, which says, don't give out your social security number, anybody that asks for it is, a criminal, basically $10,000 fine, and they could be put in jail. I mean, there's all these laws that support our view on this. The passport agency is now insisting that we give them a social. And that's really what spurred me on recently. I'm seeing a noose getting tightened. I see rights being taken away. But worse than that, when you fill out the application, you're literally being displaced. I was coming back from the passport office, and that's when I suddenly had this, epiphany that, they're wanting you to say that you're, in this zip code, that you're, this particular type of person, a U.S. person, that you have this social security number that they are now insisting that you give to them. And I felt really bad for the guy that had, come all the way up north to go there, and we were being sent away, and he was being threatened by them that, that he had to give his social security number up, or else he was going to lose the money he'd paid for the passport and stuff. So that really spurred me on, and I thought traffic would be the one thing that everybody, almost everybody has at least one car, if not two or three or more. And, maybe this, if you understand the displacement, if you understand the territorial limit of the government, and if we get enough people to start understanding that, then we can push them back into that little territory. And that's, that's kind of what I hope.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, we're not being combative, and we're not looking to be, combative. We're not looking to give anybody a rough time. But what we are doing is looking to exercise our right to travel, and get that right. And as many people who, can do this and stand up for that right, and we know that we always take a chance by doing that. We're always at risk. Mm-hmm. They may haul us off. They do that. Mm-hmm. But Jackie has developed, something where if that does happen, at least you can go repossess your own car.
Oh, actually, you can have other people do it for you, even if you are taken to jail. So,
there you go. Which is where these associations actually do start making sense too.
Yes, right? They do make some sense, and we've kind of layered it so it one thing does not fit everybody. Some people actually like to have a driver's license, and I got to admit I'm a little. Going to court is just tiring. Dealing with these people day in and day out, we're literally funding their wars, funding the victimization of ourselves. And personally, I'd rather not participate in those activities, to put it mildly. And so when you don't have a license, and if you don't have a car registered in your name, then you're not the agent for the service of process. And that's a really important thing to kind of understand. So if you're not the agent, that makes the Secretary of State the agent for the service of process. So they can't give you process. They can't serve you process. Not, literally, if the couple of people that have got tickets who have done this, and we've helped a lot of people to do this, but there's been a couple of people that do not carry any documentation with them. Like, we have a guy that actually has several cars, and he'll hop in and out of one, and then he forgets to take stuff with him, and he actually got stopped. But it was, pretty simple to deal with, because literally on the ticket you just write no consent. There's, and you can actually add in there, if you're in California, the CBC 17459, 17460. But it's important to have that evidence that we talked about earlier, proof that you filed the DL 142, and proof, hopefully, the order of cancellation, because if you include that, you're done. That's, there's no dispute. They have nowhere to go on this. You're not in their system. So, yeah, it's a safety measure.
Now, did you ever do a DS-11?
Yeah, that gives you information, right? That's another way. Yeah, I'm
for the
sure
passport. That's the passport.
The passport,
thing,
yeah.
To get your passport as an American national or whatever.
Well, yeah, we've actually done the FOIA afterwards. There's a FOIA request that you can do to request your DS-11, and if you included an affidavit with that application, you will get that also. And they'll give you a copy of that. Now you get to see what they write at the bottom, where it says for office use only. Now you get to see all their little red marks and what they do. And so they will actually locate your Social Security number and add it at the bottom.
Oh, and they probably did that.
That's generally what they do. So we've done a few of these FOIAs, and we find them all the time. So, and that doesn't matter how many stars you have on it. I know there's these, there's people that say, what these stars mean and stuff. I did a FOIA asking, I wanted to know what all the coding was on the card, the stars. I have not had a response yet. So then somebody told me, well, I have to do 3 FOIAs. So I'm going to proceed down that path and see what happens. Rather than presume, I think I know that someone's got 3 stars, 4 stars, or 5 stars, and that, I know somebody with 4 stars, and we've done the FOIA, and they have the same thing that I have. So, I can't confirm if those things are, true or not. The presumption is true or not. So
I see.
Yeah.
So do you use your passport in place of identification, or you use
I use what's called a functional equivalent. If you look up in California law, like a functional equivalent in quotes for driving or traveling, the Attorney General kind of discusses that. You could just as well, like if you wanted to, you could use, I like the idea of a legal size piece of paper. You can have whatever information you want on it about you, with a nice little picture, if you want to put your thumbprint or whatever it is. Fold it up into thirds and then send it to yourself by registered mail. And once you get it, you can be creative with the address, the way you do the address, as long as the passport office accepts it. So like I've had general delivery, or you could use the rural free delivery route, however you want to do it. That's kind of a nice way of having evidence of who you are, because anything that comes registered mail and you're in possession of it is evidence that was you. So, you can be somewhat creative with these things. A functional equivalent would be something like the International Driver's Permit, which is generally what I use. Like I said before, I've made my own before. There was one advertised in the Patriot newspaper back in 2005 or so, and it was from Texas. I kind of took that idea and made it, added my stuff to that, and that's what I had on the jail property. Those are kind of the general things that I use. I also have an English passport. I'm fortunate to have that, and I do have an American passport. So I do sometimes use the card. It depends on what I'm doing. So, but the card and an IDP, a passport card and an IDP, is good enough for traffic stops.
Cool. Well, I know I did my DS-11 right, but I don't know that they sent me the right stuff. However, in the future, if I get pulled over, that's what I'll be using until I get the notice of cancellation.
Yeah, if you have, yes, the order of cancellation. If you have, so a functional equivalent, do not have a car in your name. So remember, either the registration or the license drags you into their system as the agent for the service of process. So if you get rid of one, you must remember to put, if you're going to register a car, you need to have it registered in some other entity's name, not in your name. And like I say, an association does seem to be better than a trust. If you want insurance, then you can get something called a driver, or it's called a name not owner policy. Name not owner policy. And you can get those from various insurance companies. And what that means is you're insured to drive any car but your own. As a safety precaution, if it's an association, you won't have any problems. It should, it's a good idea to have a separate address as well if you're having that registered than yours, because a name not owner policy doesn't cover any cars in the place where it has you registered to live, and any cars that are in your name. And it's very cheap. Like you're talking like a couple $100 for the year, and you can drive any car. So if you have a lot of cars and they're not worth a fortune, you might want to consider doing that. It can save people a lot of money. Another thing that we use is a subrogation bond. So we have like a master bond on file with the Treasury, and then we only use this in California if we register a car in California. Then it requires you to have some sort of financial responsibility prior to issuing you tags. So we have the bond. We use a bond for that. So that's like a master bond on file with the Treasury, a subrogation bond, and financial responsibility letter. And then the DMV will issue the tags if you want that to be, here. Let's think. What else? I think that kind of covers you. And, this is specific for California in that sense, although most of the other states kind of do the same thing. We prefer to have registration out of state. So we take our cars generally out of state, although right now I have one, no registration anywhere and no plate. I have a second one, no registration anywhere with an English plate. I'm just looking out of my window right now trying to get that. And then I have a couple of cars that are out of state. So that's my personal. And the one that's in England, that was actually put into my estate, which happens to be in my foreign trust, which happens to be in England. So I actually I got pulled over one time after I'd done this. I should back up and start at the beginning. Okay, so I put my car into my estate at the DMV. The estate was in the trust, and there's no way to identify which estate or which trust. It's just a name thing. So I did my bond, and then they do this kind of crappy thing where they cancel your registration and you have to reinstate it with $14. So they accept the bond, but they charge you $14, and they have no reason to do that. So I got pissed off with them and was arguing with them about that. They suspended my registration. I got a ticket, a $90 ticket. So if you think I was upset about the $14, I was pissed about the $90. And then I did an accepted for value, and I put my EIN number on there, the EIN that's my estate number. So 5 days later, I sent it to the person that left the ticket. They left an envelope. I just put it in the envelope and accepted for value with the EIN number on it. The same sort of wording you guys do all the time, accepted for value, please return and whatever. But then when you put your social security number, I actually put my EIN. And then in 5 days' time, I get stopped by 2 officers, and surprisingly, the rookie goes to the passenger side while the supervisor, approached my side, and he couldn't stop laughing. He's like, "Your car's in England. How did you get your car in England?" And so my window did not wind down, so I'm talking to him through like an inch, and I tell him when it's in my trust, and he's like, "How did you do it? I want to know. I want to do it." And ultimately he said to me, would you have ID with you? And I go, no. He goes, oh, it doesn't matter. You're in England. He was just totally blown away by what, he was obviously, they were driving around and they were scanning cars. And they, obviously when they scanned ours, it came up as being in England, and that's what began the stop. And so, the rookie was like marching up and down, like just totally, this is supposed to be his stop, and he wasn't getting to do his thing, and the supervisor's just like having a great old time with us. And then he goes and mentions, well, your windows are tinted. And I go, but you don't have jurisdiction, do you? And he goes, oh, but you have a California plate. So that was kind of interesting. Anyway, it didn't amount to anything. He just said, wow, it's so awesome. He goes, see you guys later, and he left. And I came home, and then I looked online, and I discovered that a car that's in a foreign organization with California plates is actually a misdemeanor. He could have cited me for a misdemeanor right then. So I was fortunate he had no clue about that section of the codes. And so I immediately sent an email to the DOT, because they have an online, contact us online little part. And I asked them, I said, I have use of an automobile that is owned by a foreign trust that is recognized by the United States of America. What do I do with the plates? And a day later, I got a response back that said, take the plates to the nearest DMV immediately. And so that's what I did. And I carried the email in my car.
Wonderful. Wow. So if you could give people the top 3 things to do, people out there who have not done anything, okay? Mm-hmm. I mean, they have no idea what to do to get out of the system or, correct the status or anything. What would be the top 3 things that you would say are the most important to do first?
Canceling that driver's license is a big one. If you feel you're ready and if you think you can handle it, I can't emphasize enough. The reason everybody asks for that piece of documentation is because that's the item that gets you into the court of no rights. That makes you the agent for the service of process. We can all talk about the birth certificate. We know all the issues that are going on. Social Security card. The birth certificate particularly was given to you at birth. You had no choice in that matter. Social Security card. Most of the people had that even from their first job. Maybe they may have been teenagers when they obtained that one and didn't really know any better. But the driver's license generally, it's something you renew every 4 years, and you keep participating in that. And I really see that as a huge issue. And it is difficult. I'm not going to say that this has been an easy road. If you're going to do that, I'm telling you, like things like renting a motel room, renting a car, renting a tux for your kid to go to the prom. I mean, all these things that they ask you for the driver's license for is remarkable. And it can be very distressing. But overall, I think it's been the single best thing I did in my life. Except my kids. But yeah, as far as getting out of the system, that was a huge, a huge thing to do. And I'm, despite all the troubles that I've had, I do see that as I could never go back. So that would be number one. And I'm going to stick with travel as, in regards to your question. So number 2 would be get the car out of your name. Do not have that in your name, or don't have registration if you can handle it. And that's why we came up with various levels. Like I say, if you aren't sure that you can handle it, then, register somewhere else, register out of your name. There's multiple ways you can do it. And if you feel like it, get rid of the plates. And then the third thing, I don't know about the third thing. I can't think of a third thing that would be, as important as those 2 things. I really, if you look at those contracts, they're really heinous contracts or agreements or, however you want to look at it. It's your consent. Remove your consent. Stop. Okay, that would be the third thing. The third thing would be stop giving them your consent. Stop asking them to help you. Yeah, don't ask them to help you for anything. If you have problems with neighbors, family, go somewhere else. Don't go to the authorities or whatever you want to call them. I don't know. Don't invigorate that system. Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to.
That is the commonly called. That is the common word is the de facto.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they're the de facto government. I think that's in the founding documents. Actually, it's not considered a.
Yeah, stop energizing that layer. Stop giving them. If we stop doing business with them, then you have exited. The problem is where we have not organized the people. Start organizing, amongst yourself. Start helping each other. Stop having to rely on them to help you. You can do this locally. You can do it at the national level. You can even do some things internationally. But, if a neighbor has a fire, go help them put it out. Don't call the fire department. I mean, that's just for instance. Take care of your neighborhood, take care of each other, and help each other out. And stop asking these people, because all they're doing is operating under the rule of necessity. We keep walking into these offices and doing business with them, and as long as we keep doing that, we're going to be energizing and giving them a need, and they love that. They create, reasons that we need them. Let's put up some, parking meters so that we can get more money from them, and they'll need us, for these things. They're constantly trying to validate the need for their jobs. So we need to stop that. That would be 3 things.
Yeah, very good. As long as we legitimize them, they'll be there, right?
They'll be there. Yeah. Yes, and and the thing is if we start to organize ourselves locally and start. One of the big things is it's not who's going to inherit the Rembrandt, it's who's going to inherit the problems. This is where the state steps in, and if we actually help each other a lot more and, support each other, then there would be no need for them. We could just say, hey, we got it covered, don't worry. So.
And unfortunately, that's the day that we live in now, because the corruption that we're dealing with filters into every single county. I mean, it filters down. It's big. It's got tentacles, and as long as we give them the reason to exist, they're going to be there. I tend to think of it as, give unto Caesar what is Caesar's, because as much as we would like to see this entire thing change so that the harming can stop, there's always going to be those out there that need to be governed or need to feel like there's somebody out there in charge of it all. That's the unfortunate part in my mind. But
well, it's funny that you say that, because I was married to a bad boy. So yes, that was with my own beliefs, it was contradicting my own beliefs constantly. I would watch him with the stupid things that he would do, and it'd be like, damn, you're the reason why I'm they're trying to control me, and I don't do anything that's out of control. And so, yeah, I can totally understand. But you have to remember that the system is supporting them and stopping us from dealing with them, and so they continue in that behavior. That's the problem. The system supports perpetrators and does not support victims. It doesn't, I get injured, or let's say I get abused, the state, prosecutes the abuser and then gets money, and I get nothing.
Pretty much. That is, unfortunately, once again, the way it works.
That's the way it works. And usually what happens is because they're looking at him having to pay the system, then what happens is he can negotiate with the uninjured party, who then says, okay, yeah, we'll let you off those fines if you do a couple of days in jail, or, and really, if, these people that can really know the system and milk the system, they do great. They can keep going back, and the system loves them because they're validating the need for their job. So this whole cycle goes out. It's the responsible guy is the one losing out. Whereas back in the day, originally, if you didn't have that system in place, we would have simply have cast those people out. There would have been been dealt with in a much more definite way. And instead, we're not dealing with them in those ways. We're letting the system deal with them, and it mollycoddles them. It actually facilitates those bad behaviors and actually rewards them. In many, they get all the attention. They get they get a lot. Believe you me, it's crazy.
Unfortunately, it is. Yep. Unfortunately, it is true. And I think a lot of people are working hard at designing new systems, to kind of phase out these old ones, because that's really what they are, you guys. The de facto is over, in my opinion. We're going through the pains of it, but their days are coming to an end. And Justice Mickey does the Court of Records call on Friday nights, and I think that the Court of Records is really important in what we're doing as well. But I think that exercising your rights and learning how to get your status corrected is extremely important to be able to enforce Court of Records. I'm studying some stuff on contract law right now, and what I'm hearing is, that fee schedule that we send out, you can make it enforceable when you get your standing. But I could be wrong on that. But what would you say on that, Jackie?
It's kind of interesting. So I had a pretty big lien against AmeriQuest and Long Beach Mortgage. I did a process for a neighbor that lost his house, and we had accumulated a lien of about $8 million against each of those. And it was interesting. In 2005, I took it into the Superior Court in Orange County as a foreign judgment to enforce that foreign judgment there. And it was, at first they ignored it, and then I got a default judgment, and then all of a sudden, AmeriQuest was going through the crap that I don't know if you know, but it was, there was a huge suit against them, class action and stuff. So all of a sudden they wanted to get rid of my lien, and so they participated, and the judge made it quite clear to them, you have no standing to come in here and do this. In fact, he had no standing, the judge had no standing to dismiss my claim, because it was under common law. So that was kind of a really interesting thing to see. And then I could have got it enforced via the sheriff's department, but I didn't have. Back then we needed I think it was $1,300 to start having it enforced. We discovered during all this that 10 years earlier the judiciary had taken AmeriQuest into a secret court and had fined them $4 million, which was placed into the Judicial Education Fund. And then 10 years later, the people kind of sued, and, they got like $300 each or some kind of bullshit. I mean, it was just infuriating what was going on. But, our lien was kind of interesting. And I think to enforce, so this is one of the ideas I'd come up with. If I could persuade other people to pay me instead of, for their mortgage, for instance, instead of sending it to AmeriQuest, that's the real way to enforce the lien. And, and that's what the IRS does. The IRS persuades your employers, the banks, and all the rest of the people to collect for them. The government is not allowed to participate in that kind of activity, and technically it doesn't. It may appear to, but it really doesn't. These are privately enforced and via third parties who are afraid of being audited. So, and I always use that process that the IRS uses as the example as to why I should be able to do it myself. I just can't persuade people to give me the money. So, yeah, but that's really how you would enforce that.
Wow. Well, I'm happy to open the floor up for questions, comments. Anybody out there that would like to chime in? Don't be shy.
Hold on just a second. I've got the board muted.
Oh, he's got everybody muted there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead, I guess, and open the floor up for questions and comments. If you're ready for that, right, Jackie?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, great. And then Marshall Schubert, if you. Okay, so is everybody unmuted now?
AI?
All right.
Okay. So I know Marshall Schubert has got the board there, and he can see if anyone has done the *6 to get into the queue. So Marshall Schubert, if you can. So to get in, please press *6, and that'll put you in the queue. Marshall Schubert, would you please bring them up as they come in?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Maybe everybody's just stunned out there and,
You got
doesn't
three.
know what to.
If I may.
Go ahead.
This is Captain Kev. I had one comment and one question. My comment first is the other very important thing I would recommend is to revoke your election as one of the things that puts you in the system. And then my question is, in your experience with helping people cancel their driver's licenses, have you had any experiences helping people who are currently under suspension? And I yield for comment.
Jackie?
I'm sorry, hold on. I think it's me. Let me find Jackie's number again.
Schubert, I think you might have the whole board muted because I tried on my phone and then had to log in on the board to get in.
No, you were just trying to hijack the system.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay.
Okay. So I have a counter question on that. Did these people cancel their driver's license? Did the licenses expire, or did the suspension occur prior, while it was active and for cause, we'll say, for some cause?
Well, it is my own case, actually.
Okay.
My license was suspended for child support issues, which I'm under battle with, let's say. And instead of paying the thousands of dollars they were requesting for me to reinstate my license, I just sent in a notification of cancellation.
Okay.
And I'm wondering, what is your experience with those circumstances?
Sure. Okay. So here's the way that I view it, and that doesn't mean that you won't be lucky. But here's the thing: every injury deserves a remedy as such. We all understand that little, phrase. And so if you were suspended for some cause prior to it expiring or prior to you canceling it, then, they would want to get paid before they then cancel it. That's my understanding. You may be lucky and you may be able to cancel it. And I really recommend people trying to if they think they're going to get a suspension because of some crap like that, then I would cancel it prior to them canceling it. And that goes for the same for if you're a contractor and you're under kind of an investigation or there's something else going on, cancel the damn license. Don't allow them to take it away first. You cancel it. Having said that, if you ask them to cancel it, they may very well cancel it. It is kind of an awkward one. Because if you'd canceled it before, then it would be pretty easy because all you'd do is go get the order of cancellation and then show that they never had a right to take it because it was already gone.
Sure, I see what you're saying. I personally, I had never heard of a cancellation other than on their side canceling you and then requiring you to reinstate. So I did it while you were talking. I'm in Colorado. I did a search on the internet, and they talk nothing about that. So I guess I'm going to have to go down to a local branch and see if they'll even speak of it.
Yes, yeah. Usually their forms, they have like a big book of forms here in California, and there's been numerous times when we've gone to ask, and especially the DL 142, a lot of them don't know about, but we have been able to get. I was talking to people in Oregon, and they were able to find that form for Oregon. And there it was called, maybe I may be lucky and I may actually have it on here. It was kind of interesting the way that they, I'm like one of these people that have a lot of papers on my desk, and it's like a mess. But it might have been called, it wasn't called a cancellation. They actually gave it another name, like a revocation or something. So, you might have to go in and ask. So.
Well, thank you.
Well,
I'll
and keep in mind.
Yeah, but really, for other people, it's really a good idea to do it before something happens, and not let them think that they're injured. I mean, it's got to be the most ridiculous thing is to, someone who they're claiming didn't pay child support, and then suspending their driver's license. So then how are you supposed to work and get to work, to be able to pay the child support? It's the most counterproductive thing I've ever heard in my life.
It is insanity. And that is what we're dealing with, too.
Stupid. Yeah, it is stupid. Yeah.
Which is why it's important to remember, as we're doing the things that we're doing it for the right reasons. We're doing this because it's important. Okay, it's important to learn how to do. We've been programmed all of our life and brainwashed all of our life to think that we had a responsibility to submit to this authority, when in actuality, no. That was the wrong way all along, and they gained a lot of ground through our submission.
Absolutely. I was a little kid, I would say, and I remember daily stomping my foot and telling my parents, I can't wait to grow up so I can do what I like. I'm an only child, so, you can kind of picture it, and my mom would say, oh, Jack, you don't know. You're never going to be able to do what you like. And I was just adamant that was the most ridiculous statement I'd ever heard coming from an adult. So, I don't know.
All right. Go ahead, please.
Top of the twilight.
Hi.
Hi, sweetie. How you doing?
Good. Hey, Soma.
Hey, looking at the DL-142, it's pretty funny. Is the license in the minor's possession? Well, I guess so. If I haven't come forward and declared I've reached the age of majority. Is there a change in the custody of the minor? Yes. I've come to the age of majority. I mean, if you sit here and look at these documents, like the 14039, the identity theft affidavit, the way they structure these things is really funny, because when you look at it and you realize that by the fact of the abandonment, by us never coming forward when we reach the age of 18 or 21, we've never come forward and said, hey, by the way, I've reached the age of majority. I'm entitled to self-governance based upon the simple facts that you do no harm. So when you come forth and you make these, this affidavit or this declaration and saying you're coming forward and you're going to claim that the age of majority, most of their forms will not work.
They don't.
I don't know
exactly.
if you've seen the form 14039, Department of the Treasury, Internal Revenue Service, Identity Theft Affidavit. This is a very interesting document. When you look at it, what they're doing to all of us is they're trespassing upon the infant decedent's estate without proper authorization, in violation of corpus juris secundum, the Book of Infants, which is was 166. So what we try to do is we try to come back and we're playing catch-up. We're saying, wait, no, here I am. Mm-hmm. I'm alive. I think one of the major issues is the revocation of the presumed power of attorney pursuant to the Uniform Power of Attorneys Act, Section 5, and it's uniform in all the states, where it basically says that the principal revokes the power of attorney.
Well, generally so much so, the revocation of a power of attorney needs to be made in the place where the power of attorney was granted in the first place. So that was the problem
that would be the registrar of the event in the birth state, the event and issue state, where the event and issue took place. Because pursuant to the under Florida statutes, where the event took place for 1 year, it's under 209.7109, where it talks about the registrar is going to go ahead and provide an affidavit declaring that the principal is incompetent to handle his own affairs, and that he's doing that as that appointed office as the registrar, and he also claims that he is a physician under 458 or a osteopathic physician under Section 459, and so that affidavit, and that's the uniform all across the country. So when we look at the Department of Vital Records handbooks, and we talk about that requirement for that needful building to go ahead and report the foundling, i.e. the afterbirth, and commence with a salvage operation for the salvation of that afterbirth, which is just floor sweeps, as Curtis Kallenbach likes to call it. So when we reverse engineer this, and we are able to extract ourselves from this cabal, this cluster slam, this matrix. When we look at the powers of these existing statutes or existing laws, these are Corpus Juris Secundum and Am Juris Second. For example, 63C Am Juris Second of public officers' employees. And then we look at Title V under 2635.101, which public office is a public trust. And then we look at the fact that the oath of office is a quid pro quo contract. So a quid pro quo contract is pursuant to Article 6 of the United States Constitution, Clauses 2 and 3, in which the clerks, officials, and officers of government pledge to perform, support, and uphold the United States and state constitutions in return for substance, wages, perks, and benefits. Proponents are subjected to the pains and remedies for breach of contract conspiracy under Title 18, Section 241 and 242. So then when we look at what the crux of the issue is most of these people have no idea what their position is. So when you look at the famous Supreme Court case, which is called Federal Crop Insurance versus Merrill, which basically states, whatever form of government functions, anyone who enters into an agreement with the government takes the risk of having accurately ascertained that he who purports to work for government stays within the bounds of his authority. So now we're brought this thing full circle. And so now, by what authority do you come before me, and where in the hierarchy of agreements do I attach? So I think I just wanted to state that out, put that out there for you guys, for everybody on this call to hear. And
so here's a question, Soma. Have you ever looked into a writ of livery?
Yes. Livery, it's called livery and sesam, a writ of livery.
Absolutely. Yeah, the livery and sesam. Exactly. Yeah. So I actually found one because I'd been researching for one, and so there's actually one on file in England. It's from 1600s, but that's technically the correct path in terms of coming of age.
Well, that's the whole issue, because when you look at that, and we bring into the aspect of Title 31, 363.6, we're talking about what a minor is. A minor is someone who hasn't reached the age of 18 years of age, or somebody who has but yet to claim the securities held in the minor's account. Then we look at the Article 4 of the SESQB Act, where it says that man proves to be alive. All profits and interest has to revert back to the estate. It has to revert back to the man. So I think there's a case in Virginia, which is a Commonwealth, and I think there's one in Delaware, which is a Chancery state.
You mean a case for them to get back their inheritance?
Yeah, livery and sesam, yes.
Okay. So how many people have done this, and what's been going on? Is there any successes?
Not that I'm aware of. People I've been talking to have been sort of digging into the stuff that Ken has brought forward. Although the general consensus is that, we don't want to go back in the system and file their forms. But when you look at the way that for example, if you looked at this identity theft affidavit, on the right-hand side...
Yeah, I've done it. I filed it for Mark Crumpacker a while back with the IRS. And
here's the issue. When you look at the Chicago Style Manual, and you understand what happens when you put something in a box or you put something in brackets.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So now, on the right-hand side is a open pass mark up at the top side of the identity theft affidavit document.
Mm-hmm.
It's on the right-hand side where the OMB control number is. Mm-hmm. On the left-hand side is another open box going to the left side of the page that has the form number 14039. Okay? Mm-hmm. So now, what if you were to take a pen and a ruler and close off both those boxes? So now, would that not be bringing that back into common law? And then when you understand the alinea juris, which is different than sui juris, alinea juris is that we are under one type of authority, and that authority is that it's from the divine creator. Philippians 3:20 basically states that we are all citizens of the kingdom of heaven. It's from there we expect to deliver the Lord Christ Jesus, the Messiah. And then Colossians 3:17 is we do everything in his name. So I've been looking at these documents, looking at the concept of the Chicago Style Manual, and one of the facts of the matter is that they've all labeled us civilly mortus, the infant decedent. We're all dead.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
hold on a minute. Decedent doesn't mean that. Decedent means dying.
Correct. The infant decedent is dying. Yes.
Sure.
Now, what happens after that floor sweep's been brought off the floor? How long is that blob going to be breathing? Is it going to be breathing for an hour? Is it going to be breathing for 2 hours?
Sure, it's dying all the time.
Exactly. So are we. So
yes, we're dying all the time.
Under 21.7.13.3.2.2, regarding the infant decedent, pursuant to their Internal Revenue Manual. But the funny thing of it is that back in 2007 and 2008, I did a bunch of research based upon the 1099 DIV, which was a dividend. And that dividend talked about a WAPIT, Widely Held Fixed Investment Trust. So we did our research on this, and we found out that actually what they've got us classified as is a FOC-NUM-WAPIT, a fungible agricultural commodity producing in a non-mortgage, widely held fixed investment trust. And they suck from our trust because they're administrating underneath that letters of administration because we've never, number one, revoked the revocation, or we've never revoked that power of attorney as a principal, and number two, we've never claimed to have reached the age of majority. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say sort of in a nutshell. So by the way, I put some stuff in your box earlier today at 6:03 in regards to what happened in a court case, and apparently that what happened was a party got a ticket, and it said on the ticket it says appear before or beyond the day. So he got two witnesses and went down to the courthouse the next day, and he said, "I'm here to go ahead, and I'm here to appear in this matter."
Exactly, that's a good one.
And they said, we're not ready for you. And he said, I'm going to claim the bond right now.
Yeah.
And what they did is they issued him a debit card for $1,000.
Okay, that sounds good. I've gone before the case was going to be heard as well. I didn't have that result. I'd like to see the debit card. Who's it written from? Is it Bank of America?
It was written from the county clerk because they're in bank. They're in bank.
On a credit card.
On a debit card, yeah. Remove your birth certificate and respond to them by stating, I am making a special limited appearance on behalf of the defendant who is right here, and hold up your birth certificate. Then state the following.
I've done that with surrendering the defendant. But so can you get a copy of the debit card? I'd like to see a copy of it. I'm interested in knowing what it looks like.
I'll try my best.
All right, that sounds good. That would be very good. So
right.
Actually, it's a great way of doing it. Is showing up beforehand is actually a really good way of doing it.
Yeah. Now, in closing, real quick, under Bouvier's, under Chata, a charter, deed in writing, any signal or token by which an estate was held, i.e. city of, county of, state of, or the charter.
Mm-hmm.
So when you claim the bond, if they don't have the paperwork in process, what they've done now is they're committing bankruptcy obstruction, which is sedition and treason against the United States.
Sure.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
Sounds good.
Thank you for
Hi, this is Geraldine.
Hi. Hiya.
I'm up in Bishop, California, and I didn't get on until about 10 after. Where are you located?
I'm down here in Riverside.
Oh, you're in Riverside?
Yeah, near Lake Paris.
Okay. All of this is real new for me. I mean, I've been in a lot of these calls and stuff for quite a while, but still a lot of this stuff just... So if you cancel your driver's license, then what do you have in place of that if you should get stopped?
And it is a good idea to have something. So if you are not carrying anything, they can presume all kinds of things. And I've heard of, them holding people, indefinitely until there can be proof of who they are. And the idea is to not get taken in, So
right.
there's various things that you could actually use. I personally use what's called a functional equivalent. I use an international driver's permit. I also have a passport card that I sometimes use. You can use mail if you happen to be stopped and you have mail in your car and it's unopened. It will be considered your mail. Like if it's canceled, if it's actually been through the mail and it's in your possession, it would be considered evidence that you are that person whose name appears on that envelope. So there's various different types of ID that you could carry, and obviously one with a photo is best. So a functional equivalent generally has your photo on it, your information, as much as you want to give. So usually like a name, date of birth. You don't necessarily have to have an address, or you could write the address the way you want it to be. Like if you want to have general delivery on there, you could have general delivery on there. You can be a little more creative with your identification that you create yourself. There are a few people out there that do create IDs. I create IDs. There's Peaceful Remedies. I don't know if you guys have heard of Peaceful Remedies. They do have IDs, and those work very well.
So we can get one from somebody will do one for us?
Yeah, in a lot of, we do find that the international driver's permits work. We have a company called Trans-American Travel Association, or TATA for short, that creates IDPs. Is
there a website for that?
And no, we don't. We only do it through word of mouth. So, and usually, we can get it done very, very quickly.
Okay, how do I go about doing that then?
You have to send me an email, and then, I can help you with that. And so my email is, I should tell you that, it's F as in Frank, I as in ignoramus, GG for good girl, J as in jam, A, yes, two G's. Yeah, two G's, and then JAX, figjacks @gmail.com. That's my email. So, so there's various, ways that you can do it yourself, or there's people out there that do it privately. I do prefer the private style. And then there is a passport, and there are, a passport card. That works really well. Here's something I want to draw your attention to on that. For instance, if you don't have a government ID, then, some places don't let you in. Like, for instance, the district court, the United States District Court. And it's very simple. It's because that court is not for you. Anywhere where they require you to have that government ID is generally a place that is obviously not made for us. So, bear that in mind. It's kind of a telltale, piece of information you're getting that tells you to stay away from that particular entity. So don't go doing business with anybody that requires you to have that government ID.
Okay, I don't do business.
Yeah, don't do business with them. Yeah. And you're saying that you're quite new to this. Make sure you arm yourself with enough information. So, in my video, for instance, I give you the 4 main laws that, or codes that you kind of need to be aware of. So one of the most important ones would be California Vehicle Code 260B. And that one tells you right there that passenger cars are not required to be registered. Then you've got, like, California.
I see your video.
Sorry, say that again?
How do I see your video?
I'm trying to think what the title of it is. Well, you know what? Send me an email and I'll send it to you. But the other important one to know about is like 21052. In that one, it describes the persons that are required to be licensed. And then the other 2 very important ones are 17459, and 17460. Those 2 are the ones that are actually bringing us into the system. And if the guy from Colorado can find that in Colorado, that would be really good. Everyone.
The California Vehicle Code, you can just get that. Where? Are they copies in the DMV office or?
Actually, one of the best ways of accessing it. Do you use a computer?
Sort of. I didn't. I'm not real techy. I grew up before computers.
Yeah, no, and I know how difficult it is. I sometimes do classes to help people, learn to search, because it can be really frustrating when you don't know how to use search on the computer. But one of the best sites for California law is simply you can type in Find California Code, and when you do that, there's one that's searchable, and you look in the searchable part of it, and on there it has the vehicle code. It has all 29 codes, and you'd have access to all of those. Again, if you put that in the email, you'll have to remind me. I will send you a link and make it easier for you to find, and then you can, and I'll send you a copy of all these codes as well.
Okay, so I want the video and codes.
Yes.
And what else do I put in there?
And I'll send you some links. Yeah, so it'll give you an idea. And if it's made easier, you won't get so frustrated. I totally understand. When people are not used to. I'm kind of a Google queen, so but it's very frustrating for people when they don't know how to use and but and quotes. So yeah, I'll send you some links and make it less frustrating for you.
Okay, because is there anybody that you know of that's closer up this way?
There are groups up there, and I will write that down as well in the email, because I do have a group in Fresno. They were here earlier today. We have.
That's a long ways away. There's 14,000.
Yeah. Okay, we have Chico.
That's up north.
Yeah, I'll find you one. We're all trying to get together in California so that we can kind of get this settled. I'm sure I'll be able to find somebody up near Bishop. I'll just have to put.
Okay, well, we're about 200 miles from any place.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Oh, that's not a problem. Once we can teach you how to use Zoom, I don't know. You obviously wouldn't know what Zoom is, but Zoom.
I've heard of it, but I haven't used it.
Okay, I will send you a link for Zoom, and we can do a face-to-face chat, and I can share documents with you on Zoom. So,
okay. Wow.
Okay, there's many ways for us to all help each other with this.
Because if I can get kind of fluent in this, then I can go out and work with other people. That's what I would love to do.
Absolutely, and know that taking back your power. It's wonderful. It's really nice. It's freeing. I mean, you feel lighter, taller.
Confident in that.
Yes.
To get confident in that.
Yes, you get confident. Absolutely. Yes. And by the way, when I first got into this, there was not very many women in it, and there's a lot more women that are joining this battle. And once women are less scared of the lack of. Oh, I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it just said. Okay. So yeah, it's going to be much more empowering. One of the most upsetting things I've seen is women getting tickets, taking their kids to school. And I know full well that they're not required to have a license or registration, and there they are being, ticketed right in front of all the kids. It's horrible. So this needs to stop.
Okay. I will get an email out to you.
I'll look forward to it.
Okay. Thank you so much. I yield.
Great. And who's next?
There was a whole list here, but all of a sudden it all disappeared. I have no idea what happened.
There was a recording that came on that said, question and answers are now ended.
If I may. That's my bad. This is Captain Kev. It's my bad. I accidentally hit the clear button.
Well, I just put it back.
Thank you, sir.
So there were some people in the queue that were first. I don't know what happened to them.
It looks like they're coming back on. In the meantime, I had one more comment for Jackie. I did do a search for that form in Colorado. Colorado Division of Driver's License lists all their forms online, and it did not show up. So I'm going to keep looking. I yield.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on just a second. I got to unmute Jackie. Ugh. Sorry. Hold on just a second. Let me find her. Jackie, believe it or not, I'm actually getting better at the board. So I don't see her on the call.
Hello. May I?
Hey, Pam, hold on just a second.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you now.
Hold on just a second. Oh, there she is. Sorry. She showed back up.
Okay. Can anybody hear me?
Okay, sorry. Just very quickly. If you can't find that form, you may want to close them out with a series of letters. And I can help with that because that's how I did mine originally. But all you want to do is just tell them that you want to either rescind your signature, and as Soma rightly points out, you want to revoke any powers that you've granted them, and you want to cancel that agreement. So and that's not a bad idea actually, considering your situation. Why wouldn't you rescind your signature off of the application in the first place? So that then you're doing something.
Pretty much right. That's pretty much what I did with a notice of rescission that I sent to the Secretary of State, and I think I also CC'd the administrator of that department in Denver.
Good. That sounds like a good thing to do. Yeah.
But it probably wouldn't be bad to just send it again.
Yeah, and just learn from my case. Be careful what you ask for; you may actually get it. So, if there's something specifically that you want, write it down. Make that very clear. I either want to be removed from your system, or I want it to show that I, do not detain. Some people, if that's what you want, write it down. And ask them for that.
right.
You'll learn that they can only give you what you've asked for. So if you didn't ask for anything, they're not going to give you anything.
Exactly. One more question for you real quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure everybody's curious about where did you get your international driver's license? And then one comment, I host these calls on my YouTube channel, Colorado Prepper.
Okay.
So this show should be posted tomorrow at some point.
Okay.
And I yield.
Thank you. I actually I have an association called Trans-American Travel Association, and so we can do that. Also, I said their name. Peaceful Remedies also does that. There's another place that does it too, PATA, which is the Pan American Travel Association. So there's various places that you can get those from. So, and they're good in everywhere except Nicaragua. I think Peaceful Remedies is good anywhere except Indonesia. But apart from that, those are 3 places that you can get them from. So.
Right. Can people contact you through your website?
I would contact me. I gave my email. Yes, you should be able to contact us at the website. In Internally Displaced People, I believe that there is a contact us at there's an info. Yeah.
Great. I'm going to link your website to the show when I put it up.
Oh, thank you. And we will be having some how-to, like real clear. They'll be done via Zoom, so I can actually bring the documents up to actually show people, this is the DL-142, this is how you fill it out, this is how you, so it's just very, very clear. And then there'll probably be like 6 steps, so that it will make it, really clear for people to be able to do it themselves. So
that's awesome.
Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, Jacqueline. It's nice. Hi. Jackie, it's nice to have you. I have a few things I'd like to ask. Your vehicle code you talked about, now that is from the state of California, or is that from some law book?
It's actually from the state of California. If you think of it like this, so it's technically a federal layer, and then each state adopts which part of it that they want. So while you may be in another state, the way I look at it is there's like 50 ways to steal your shit. Each state adopts, a certain procedure of stealing your stuff, and really what it's about is that you don't catch one and then catch them all. So, diverted cons is, or diverse cons is what I call it. So which state are you in?
I'm in Florida.
Okay, so Florida does have the territorial, it has this thing in there that basically says to the effect, in this state means within the boundaries of the state that is on property or land. No, it doesn't say property. It says, that's owned by or ceded to the United States of America. It has some kind of wording like that within the Florida statute, somewhere under taxation. So, and the driving stuff you will find in Florida too. Like you'll find a part where it shows you that your car is commercial in nature. Basically, the use of your car is commercial in nature.
Right.
You'll find that somewhere in there.
Right.
So.
Okay. No, that's great. I had something else. Oh, I had 1 or 2 other things I wanted to ask. I think the gentleman had asked that previously to me talking, but I would like to know the color that debit card that gentleman talked about that was given.
Yes, me too.
Not just what it looked like, but the color of it. That's
absolutely.
I'm very curious about that. And maybe you can share that with our group when you get that. That would be great.
Sure.
Let me see. I wrote down a few things, but I lost track of all my notes. Well, I guess that should do it for right now because I lost track of my notes.
Oh, that sounds like me.
Yeah, well, I'm a note taker, but I'm doing too many things, I guess. But I want to thank you very much. You've been very insightful and educational. I appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, hi, Jackie. I'm enjoying your insight and input. I want to confirm your email address. Is it figgjax@gmail.com?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Now in 2011, my driver's license expired, so I went to DMV and I surrendered my DMV. So they gave me a state photo ID, and that's what I have. But I drive, and I've never been pulled over.
Yes. Good.
Tomorrow I'm going to call DMV and find out if I have to formally submit like cancellation of my driver's license.
Yeah, you're in a little precarious situation. Although you do have the ID, you'll probably get a letter back from them that says something to the effect of, your license is already expired, you don't need to cancel it or anything. And that's great. There's nothing wrong with that piece of paper. That piece of paper serves you well and shows that you're not just traveling around mindlessly without a license, which is the way that, if you got stopped, that the police officers would look at it. They would look at it that you forgot to renew. So to provoke a letter like that, that's not a bad idea. Just drop them a note, or I would probably do it by letter and send it to the commissioner of the, or rather the director of the Department of Motor Vehicles, and just provoke that response. And then make plenty of copies of those letters. Those are important letters. Keep them in any car that you have. And then the other thing is for you, especially in the situation that you're in, please take the car out of your name. I'm hoping either you have no registration or you have some kind of registration and it's not in your name, because if it's in your name, you're still consenting that service of summons may be made on you, and that will be their hook. They'll tow the car, they'll impound the car, and then they'll cite you. To avoid that. Sorry, go ahead.
In the name of it, in the state of Oregon.
Okay.
My name.
Okay, good. Yes, then there's no consent. Excellent.
Yes, there's no consent. So how can I be served? Let's say if I was driving down, should I just show the traffic cop my state-issued photo ID?
Yeah, you're fine. That's as long as it's expired. I in the video I actually raised what's called the O'Neill case, and I'm sure in any state you'll have something similar, which basically shows that if you have not asked them permission, basically you're not in their system. So so under the O'Neill case, an expired license was enough to stop I think it was Contractors Board from going after him. So yes, you'll be fine. Which state are you in?
I'm in the state of Oregon.
Oh, wonderful. Oregon's beautiful. So Oregon, it's very clear that it is a commercial activity. So you would really, keep those codes down. There are certain codes, and I probably can track them down for you. If you send me an email, I will, I know a lot of people will be emailing me now. This is terrible. But anyway, I will be happy to fish out those codes for you because, there's actually, if you go to Fam Guardian, and I'm trying to think of where, because he has a horrendous site. It's huge. This guy, he writes a lot. But under the Fam Guardian, which I'll pull out, and I can probably send you a copy of, Oregon was covered. Yeah, right on the...
Your email address is, again, FIGGJ, as in Jack, AX.
Yes, and right in there, the Fam Guardian, it's FAM Guardian. And I'll send you, let me know, make sure you let me know that you're in Oregon. And I'll send you I will send you I've got all the codes for Oregon. That's yeah.
Oh, excellent. That would be a great help. I really appreciate it, and I yield.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Jackie, how are you holding up?
Good.
Okay. You've been going for 2 hours.
Oh, okay. Well, it's entirely up to you guys.
Okay. No problem. There's 3 more callers on the board.
Sounds good.
Okay. I'm just going to go ahead and move the next one up then.
Hi, this is Stephen. I'd like to know what he meant regarding give him the EIN number, and that is equal to a trust or an estate number. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Good.
So I have an estate which has an EIN. It's recognized by the United States of America. I obtained that, a number of years ago, like I don't know, 2011 or so. And I have a foreign trust which my estate is in. So in other words, I've disregarded the entity which was the estate and put it inside my foreign trust. And so each of those has an EIN. One is the trust is known as a 98 number. 98 means it's foreign. -6 or 7 will mean it's a trust or an estate. The estate that I have is like a 46-6 number. So the EIN stands for Employer Identification Number.
So the trust is the 98 number.
Correct.
That's
it's a foreign
the
trust.
Off the 98 that was issued. Mm-hmm. How many 98 trusts can one have?
You can have. I have multiple. I'm thinking right now maybe between 2 of us here, we've probably got 8 or 9 of them. We don't have a problem getting those. You could have unlimited numbers of foreign trusts, and we use those as a basis to create all kinds of other entities, including associations, just so you know.
That's what I was wondering. Where's the guidelines, the book of the things to do and the list not to do and the things to do with these 98 numbers?
Yeah, those are. It's interesting. You have to kind of, read a lot and kind of discover a lot. So the 98, because obviously you're familiar a little bit with the 98, and other callers might not be. The 98 number is a foreign trust. And so the idea is that originally you create a trust with your name, and it's foreign to the United States of America. Mm-hmm. You could create that trust within the United States of America, and it would still be foreign if you included a statement to the effects of, if any court attempts to take primary jurisdiction over the administration of this trust, the trust will migrate. If it has what's called a migration clause or a flee clause, or it's foreign, then it's not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States of America. And so that's why many of us use what's called foreign trusts. The benefit of that is that, yes, it's not subject to the laws of the United States. Of course, establishing that without providing them documentation is quite a challenge. The reason why we use associations is because you do not have to have a person's name attached to that association. So whereas in a trust, any property that's owned by a trust must be ITF, in trust for, or it's held by the trustee for the trust. An association can hold it in the ABC association or bar association or whatever association it is. So that's why we use associations. So just to clarify
what's
that.
Now association? What's that term? It was like all the people from the British West Indies Company that started the trading and everything. They were called a private membership association.
Well, a private society, yes. I mean, private societies have been used for a long time, and associations are kind of similar to that. So they have their own laws, and you can operate under private agreement. So let's say for the sake of argument, you're a doctor and you wanted to run a practice and not necessarily, deal with the IRS and all the rest of these places. Well, if you set it up as a membership-only kind of health center, so you stay away from the words like medicine and medical, and, you have private members, then you have more discretion over the things that you do. So, I mean, just to name a few famous associations, and these are generally unincorporated associations, which means there's no formal incorporation, there's no state numbers or anything like that, although you can get a state number in California. Other states, have none. Here you're not necessarily required to, but they do have it, and it's a private number that's put on an index card and kept in the basement. You can't look it up like you do corporations, LLCs, and the rest of it. So, but to name a few, you would have there's an association of sheriffs. There's a sheriff's association. That would be like a big one. The Bar Association is probably the best known association that most of you have. And if you think about it, these associations are the things that are actually at the top level of everything. It's members of the association that are making the rules for the rest of us. You'll find there's an association of secretaries of state. You'll find there's notary associations. I mean, every level of every form of government, there's some form of an association that is actually deciding policy that affects all of us.
Can I ask you a question on something? Mm-hmm. I heard somebody at one time said if you are not, you need to be a part of an association, because if you're not, anything like you said, like the Bar Association, that's not even jurisdiction. It's they're adopting you under their rules, maybe because you are not a member of some other private membership association. How does that work?
There's some. Yeah, I'm not quite understanding your question. Maybe if you rephrase it.
Well, the guy I heard, he said that you need to be part of an association. I think what was that guy's name? Keith Livingway or something?
Oh, Keith Livingway.
Yeah.
Oh, Keith.
You know him? What do you think about Keith?
This is public information here. I can't put that in public. I love Keith.
I mean, are you thumbs up or thumbs down or neutral on Keith?
I'm neutral.
It sounded really good what he was talking about.
He's very good. He's a very smooth talker. Associations are important. And so you have private associations. There's quite a few of us that participate in private associations. I have multiple associations. And so, like I say, you can have if we have a large group of associations, like think about the Bar Association, they make a lot of policy that makes things very difficult for us. Most of the problems that we have is association-made policy. It's not law. Like, for instance, here's a good one. The Association of County Recorders, they create a manual. And so because of that manual, many of you have difficulties filing certain documents or recording certain documents that don't comply with the recorder's manual. That was because of an association. Another one would be a notaries association. They have a notaries association handbook. That is not a state-mandated document or a state-mandated group. That is a private group of a private association of which these notaries belong to, and they dictate what form of identification they're going to accept and how they're going to, restrict us in certain things. So, again, these are policies that they've created that are enforced as if they were law. So,
Chuck,
that's their power.
May I ask you this? Is there like a guidelines for making your own private membership association? Is there something that must be followed, like step A, 1, 2, 3, or whatever, and then you establish an association? Because I heard associations are very important, because if you're a member of a private membership association, members can share. They can share things that the general public can't. Let's say you're a member of an association, and the association buys a lot of either law books or health videos or health courses. You get enough people that all want to chip in and get low cost nutrients.
Insurance. Absolutely. Nutrients, you name it. These all. Let's put it this way. What about the Automobile Association? I don't know if many of you realize the Automobile Association or something similar, the similar association, there was a highway association. That's what became the Department of Motor Vehicles. So that's how they proceed. So you're absolutely right. And now as far as there being a handbook, look up unincorporated associations, and you will find that there is quite a bit written about them. There are a few legal books on them. I'm going to dare say, send me an email, put it in the email, and, just understand that it may take me a couple of days to get the stuff to you all, but I will diligently go through. And if I don't, please send me a reminder, because I tend to get sidetracked. I'm one of these scattered, people that has piles on her desk, and it's like, like my partner, jokes, if I see a shiny object, I'm into that one until another one comes along, and I tend to do that. So, please make sure you follow up until I give you what I've said I'm going to give you. So send me an email, and I will send you some stuff on unincorporated associations.
Right. But there is basic guidelines. I mean, where are they under? Are they under the U.S., or what kind of guidelines are these things to make
usually
your own
what state are you in? What state are you in? What state are you in?
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania probably has some guidelines somewhere in there. They're probably very limited. Have you ever dealt with Pennsylvania for unincorporated associations? No. Okay, so we've never created one for people there. But what would be the closest? We've done them on the East Coast before, Maryland, New Hampshire, Maryland. So, yeah, we've done them in other states like that before, and we never found any issues with it. Usually what we do is we call up the Secretary of State and ask them very simply, hey, do you have any guidelines or any rules in regards to me getting a number for an unincorporated association? Most of them say no, and it's that simple. And then you can create your articles. You can obtain an unincorporated not-for-profit association EIN off of there via your 98 number. So you use your 98 number as the person that's obtaining that EIN, and then you could go and open up a bank account for an association and not have a social attached to it. So just to inspire you to check that out.
May I ask just another brief question regarding the 98 number? What is the benefit of having the 98 in one's quote-unquote name or title?
My gosh.
And having one under for something else like ABC.
No, you have to have
whatever.
one in your name. You have to have one in your name.
Yeah.
What's the benefit of it? You can move as the trust and not move as you. So in other words, you've got a couple of people, so they flip you in and out of various capacities. And when I say they, I mean, we'll loosely call them the government, the corporation. Yeah. They flip you in and out of various capacities, whether it's in your estate or whether it's in a trust or whether it's in a corporation. So now when you create these documents for yourself, or you create these entities for yourself, so you have like a sole corp, you have like a trust, and you have associations, and you have estates. And, at least 3 of those would actually be in your name. Association you would not want in your name. But the other 3 are kind of cool to have in your name. Now you can flip in and out of those various capacities with no seams. It's a seamless operation. So you can move as a trust, you can move as an estate, and you can move as a sole corp. And that is so beneficial for you in many, many ways. And I'm trying to think of some off the bat, but so you could use your 98 number, let's say, in terms of your employment. I don't know if you can see the benefits of that as opposed to throwing your Social Security number out there. It's a huge benefit. And because you have ID in that name, it's a seamless operation. They just look at that, look at the name, they see that the name and the EIN and the IDs all match, and there's no problem. It's like a seamless operation. So, personally speaking, we've had no end of benefits since doing that. And like I say, we've been having ours since about 2011, maybe early 12. So, lots of benefits.
All right.
Am I all alone? Oh, there you are. Yes. Go ahead.
I moved somebody forward, but they're not speaking, so I guess we'll just go to the next caller. Well, let me give them.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's Soma.
Yes. I'm sorry, I was on mute. I put in your Skype box the 294-page CEDM doc on defining your right to travel, which has on page 154, it goes through every state requirements for an application for a driver's license from Alabama all the way through to Xerox. Okay?
Yeah, he's awesome. And so are you. Thank you. And yeah,
and I also put in the link. I also put in a link to the Colorado Department of Revenue, where the specific cancellation and/or revocation, cancellation and denial is outlined. So if that man is still on the call, who is on
Captain
Shadow,
yes,
you can send him that link at a later time.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right. Have a blessed twilight. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you.
If I may.
Sure.
Jackie, this is Captain Kev again. If I give you my email address, can you send that to me?
Absolutely.
All right. It's K as in kilo, A as in alpha, P as in papa, K as in kilo, E as in echo, V as in Victor, at unseen.is.
Okay. IS. Okay. Okay.
And then I'll repost those links. Kev.
Oh, Kev, yes. Oh, yeah. I better correct my writing. Thank you.
And then I'll repost those links you send me for everybody else here in Colorado.
Okay, fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you. I yield.
Anyone else?
Yes, next caller, 4477. You're in the queue. Go ahead. All right, well, maybe they fell asleep. Just, if anybody's got any more questions or comments, hit *6 to get in the board.
Okay, anyone else out there with questions or comments?
Yep. Stephen's got some more questions.
Okay.
How would you use the 98 number to your benefit if you're accused of a traffic violation?
What kind of a traffic violation?
A full house. I call it the full house.
Which is
everything.
Everything. Okay, it probably wouldn't benefit me in terms of a traffic violation. Now, appearing in court, it might well do. There's other people that use it in court, but here's the way I look at it is if there's no license and no registration, I don't go to court, and very simply for me, all I do is I take the ticket and I write along it like no consent, and then that there's no acceptance of a driver's license, so there's no consent as the agent of service of process. That's the way we've handled it, and there's nowhere they can go. There's nothing they can do because you're not the agent for the service of process. So, while I understand what you're asking me, we've gone, and I don't want to use the term beyond, but we don't deal with the courts anymore or that side of the system. I don't like to go in there. Every time you walk in there, you are risking life and limb, and I find that just writing on there, I don't consent to service of summons, is so much easier. And actually what happens is, let me see, like my partner Ken, he's probably been stopped and he's just disappeared. So I'm going to say around 5 times. He's been stopped a couple of times while I've been in the car, and he gets the same response each time, which is, we could tow your car, we could do something else, whatever it is, but we can't be bothered. The few times I've been stopped since I kind of got myself settled, I got stopped. I was going pretty fast along Ramona Expressway, which is really well known for speed traps, cops sitting there waiting for someone to go by. And it's kind of funny because when the cop comes up, he's like, I ask him, why did you stop me? He says, well, you were doing 75 until you seen me, and or until you passed me by. It's kind of funny the way he said it. And I gave him my documentation, and he's like, well, I don't know what to do with this. He goes, go on, have a nice day and slow down. And another time I went through a DUI checkpoint, same thing, we can't deal with this. It's kind of in the middle of the night, and they're towing everybody's cars away, so obviously they could deal with it because that's what they were doing. They set a speed trap, or rather they set up a trap, a DUI, trap, and were towing many cars, but they couldn't be bothered with me or mine. So this is a typical response we get, and I like that response. I don't want to deal with fighting anymore in court. I'm done with those fights. I've been there and, had many battles in court, and I prefer the easy way out, which is, simply handling it at the side of the road and them not being able to, go anywhere with it. So.
Well, unfortunately, some people get past that impasse when you send their presentments back to them with a neutral response letter or whatever, and then they put a bogus warrant out for your arrest. They get you anyway.
Well, here's what I've seen: when you don't have a license. Now, if they've suspended it, there are other issues that could come up. But if you do it in the way that I've presented,
that's the problem. You're exactly right.
Yes. Okay. Because
suspended it, and then it's like murder. People have got out of prison way less time for murdering people than having a driver license.
Well, like I said, my bail was $920,000. There you go. That's 4 murders. I could have committed 4 murders. So,
right. You're exactly right.
Yeah. No, yeah, and that's why I wanted to do the video, was exactly for that problem. I'm trying to help that particular group of people that are having the issue that you just mentioned. So what happens is they don't cancel their driver's license in the correct manner. We'll just say they let it expire, or they get it suspended, and then they provoke the situation by not dealing with it, kind of thing. And then and I say this language, not being judgmental or anything like that. We've all done it, and if you don't get that order of cancellation, then you have no evidence of it. Now, if you Go on.
I was going to ask if you have sent a letter to the director of the Department of Transportation, registered, and with total cancellation, revocation of your signature, of the permit, everything, and then you notify them to take care of this immediately, and then afterwards you get another ticket and they didn't do it. Is like the director of the Transportation Department responsible or liable or what?
And remind me,
ignored it.
This is in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, and there is no form to cancel or revoke one's own driver license in Pennsylvania. I checked.
Yeah, I would imagine Pennsylvania is probably a tough one, being a Commonwealth. There has to be a way, and let me do some research on it, and I'll have a look. But once you get that suspension, that should be the eye-opener that something's not quite right. You haven't terminated something correctly. So, and if that's the case, I'd be more interested to see your letters. So, if you're going to send me an email, enclose the correspondence that you've had, and sometimes you have to go down there. Like we had a guy here, he was in a similar situation. He had canceled his driver's license way back when, around 2007 or something, and he didn't get the order of cancellation. He was then caught traveling, ticketed, and then it was suspended because, he'd done this. But then he had evidence that he had actually canceled it, and he walked into the DMV with that evidence, and he said, I want, and I'd given him a copy of the order of cancellation, and he said, I want this document with my name on it, and they made him one right there, and he left the office. Yeah, and I was like totally surprised. It was one of these suggestions that just panned out really, really well, and now we've had several people go and do that. So, he was able to prove, though, and that's why I say it's really important, guys, to get the proof. You need that piece of proof so if later on you can show them, look, this is the DL-142, or this is my letter of cancellation that was sent registered mail, and you didn't, the suspension occurred after the cancellation.
Is that what the DL-142 is, a revocation of one's own driver license?
It's called a cancellation of driver's license here. Yeah, and it technically doesn't cancel the number. So just, everyone should know that an account is never closed. Once that number's been assigned to you, it's assigned to you forever. But, you've canceled it as such. So like it says on that letter, it says, thank you for, canceling your driving privileges. So, yeah. But, yeah, send me the correspondence. I will take a look and let's see if we can get that corrected.
Yes, I guess in a continuation of the question is when let's say you have a court deal that's pending, what is the best thing to get into the file to correct one's status? Can the authenticated birth certificate help? Does that give you standing by having your authenticated birth certificate? It's like the certificate of title. You now own your own certificate of title.
Sure. I mean, I've had mine for quite some time. I have my naturalization papers done probably around 2005 as well, with the authentication. I have both England and here. And here's the thing. I don't know if the codes are going to be the same there, but here it's very specific. There are certain birth certificates that are allowed to be used by government officials. If you go onto your Secretary of State website or wherever you order birth certificates from, there's usually a drop-down menu, and it will say, I'm ordering for myself, I'm ordering for some, a kid or something, or, I can't quite remember. But one of them will be, I'm a government, this is being ordered by a government official or something. Their form of the birth certificate is slightly different than the ones that we have. I have not seen the one that they actually obtain, but it is different than ours, from my understanding. And I have surrendered the defendant before. I've gone to court and surrendered the defendant, given the bailiff a birth certificate of that was of the name of the defendant, and had quite a reaction, believe you me.
By what? They're bringing in the birth certificate?
Yeah, by bringing in the birth certificate. But with my understanding is that they're really not allowed to use that particular birth certificate. Government employees or government officials or anyone that's operating in that official capacity operates under a different birth certificate than the one that you have. And the way that you'll discover that is, like I say, go onto the website where you obtain birth certificates, look at the drop-down menu, because usually there's you have to qualify who you are in relation to the birth certificate.
Is that why may I say something very important? When one gets the driver license, you are seen as an employee or an operating an agency of the state. So under that, is that why you would request a new birth certificate under being a government employee?
No, but that's the only one they can administer. That's the thing. Theirs is different than ours. So when a government official administers a birth certificate, it's not the same as the one that we're administering. And I don't know what the difference is. I've never seen what theirs looks like. But there is an option for them to obtain birth certificates. And so...
I thought you meant when you request another birth certificate, you just tell them you're a government agent.
No.
Because you are if you have a driver license.
It's true that you can look at it from that perspective. We had a guy out here called Corey Ibe, and he attempted to, obtain, well, he did. He got plates, foreign organization plates. So to be a foreign organization, you have to pretend to be a foreign. Anyway, he ended up in quite a lot of trouble over it. I'm not quite sure.
I didn't hear what you said. To be a foreign organization, what?
He got foreign organization plates, like registration plates for his car, and those ended up getting him into quite a lot of trouble because on there you have to say that you're a government employee.
Yeah,
the code
you got a driver's license, you are.
Yeah, exactly, you are, and they meander. These laws, they meander, or these codes meander whichever way they want to. So yes, they're forcing you in as an employee, but if you take the status as an employee, then they'll come after you for saying that. So it's kind of strange.
So what people were doing is a gentleman I know, he sent them a bill for $250 a day for every day since he was 18 years old, I believe, after he turned 18. And a vehicle for $250. Maybe that was just for maintaining their vehicle per vehicle that he had for every motor vehicle he ever had.
Okay.
And then he sent an invoice, and he wants to be paid for being. He's an agent, or he's operating an agency, and he's an employee, but he's not never been paid.
Yeah, if you look in your probate code, there are provisions for that. So you'd have to go through your probate code, but there's provisions for maintenance.
And then after the second letter where they did not respond, I believe he said he changed some things over, and he made, instead of him being the receiver of service of process, he made he revoked that agency position, and he made the Secretary of State, I think it was.
Yes, that's the person.
The agent of service of process. So anything that comes to him as his name over like a traffic citation or anything like that goes immediately directly to the Secretary of State because they didn't pay his bill.
Yeah, it's usually the Secretary of State that becomes the agent for the service of process, and there is a form called RA 100.
Is that for every state?
It's for revocation as the agent for the service of process. And I'm not sure if that's only in California, but there's one in California. It's called an RA 100. I pulled it up the other day, but I can't remember if it was just California. You probably got it somewhere there. And it doesn't quite hit the spot. It's really for business entities. And I did send one in, and I kind of got a letter back saying, I know what you're trying to do, but it's not quite right. And it's true. That was not quite the right form, but that's kind of what you're talking about. It's called an RA 100 here anyway. But, yeah, revoking the agent for the service of process. Here, that would be done on a DL 142. That's what that is, for traveling. Now, if you don't have that, then you may need to do a letter similar to the one you just described. You will need to rescind your signature from the application, revoke your agency. You're no longer the agent for the service process. The Secretary of State would naturally then become the agent for the service of process, and you might want to cancel, the license. It's that simple. So rescind, revoke, and cancel.
And my friend also says everything, this is all under the laws, what do you call it? Laws of fines or something like that. It's the Sea Admiralty laws and but he's from Louisiana. And, and they're under civil law instead of statute law, where the notaries
Napoleonic.
Napoleonic
the
law.
Napoleonic laws. Yeah, and actually, so your friend must have, if he went and got something authenticated, like his birth certificate authenticated, he would have a beautiful authentication. Louisiana has one of the best authentications I've ever seen. It usually comes with a red, white, and blue ribbon down the side, and it's very pretty. And it's once you've got that done, they actually have the full faith and credit at that level without having to go to the United States of America for that.
So, he says very special. The notaries they're like lawyers. The notaries have huge powers. Like doing notarial protests and so forth like that.
Yes, and remember, you can still borrow those even though you're not in Louisiana. Any notarial function you can bring to your state. So, and plus you can take the documents you want notarized, get them notarized in your state, and then send them to Louisiana. So if you want those beautiful documents, you can get those too.
May I ask you a question? What about what's it called, form? It's an IRS form 4506A. It's to verify. It's for non-government entity, for political subdivision status, to prove that some agency is coming after you, let's say in a court, and to prove that they are in fact a government,
agency,
subdivision status, political subdivision status, that they are in fact a political subdivision of a real true government. With that form 4506A, if you look that up on the internet, it'll come right up. There's an instruction list that gives some background on it, and it says they must respond. If you get 30 days in writing, or if you send it by email, digital, they have to respond instantly, and there's no fee or anything. But my understanding is you have to demand this confirmation letter, IRS political subdivision confirmation letter from your court, your local court. And if they do not have that, they are not a government. They are a for-profit entity. That's why, they're registered in Mansa and Dun & Bradstreet.
Dun & Brad's, yeah.
Is that correct? Do you have any information if that is, in fact, the truth, that if they fail to come up with that letter, then they are not even a government, and don't have any business running a court?
Sorry, that's my Skype. I'm pulling up that form right now. I'm not familiar with it. I think that would be an interesting form to try. I will probably give it a try.
And then there's a form, I think, is it a 56? I can't remember. That's when you 56. Report them to the IRS, and then you can go in as a bounty hunter and collect a bounty for all those people that they didn't pay their IRS taxes on. They got all these traffic ticket money, and they didn't pay any taxes.
Yeah, I actually handed in a bunch of forms like that, and it appears on the case report that the documents I left for the court at the court was sent to their legal department. And I remember, kind of laughing because I thought they were the legal department.
No, you go right to the IRS.
Yeah.
You don't go to their court. You go to the IRS and have the IRS do an investigation.
Yeah, well, we have certain ones that we actually request from the court. So, yeah, it's pretty funny. I've never tried those. We do have one guy down here who used to work for the IRS, and he does do those. But I don't mess with the IRS stuff. I'm really not keen on using their forms as much as possible. So,
my understanding is they become your best friend.
Yeah,
because
some people do say that.
People that should be paying taxes.
Yes, it's true. Some people do say that. My question is always, how is that working? Is there any proof of what's going on?
Not that I know. That's why I'm asking anybody out there on this call that can chime in on that. And
if there's any evidence, I'd love to see evidence.
Press star 6.
Yeah.
And speak up. So I don't know. We'll see on that one. But thank you very much. You're a real diplomat, and thank you.
Thank you. I've enjoyed the call. Thank you very much for having me. And,
wonderful. You have really been great, too, Jackie. We've been going for almost 3 hours. It's getting close to a quarter to the top of the hour, and that would mark 3 hours. I don't want to let anybody out there, who's dying to ask a question or make a comment. I don't want to deny anyone that opportunity. So we are getting late, though, so we probably should start thinking about wrapping up the call and letting Jackie go. But I would like to ask you, Jackie, if you would come back on the call for us again.
Sure.
In the near future.
You know, absolutely, yes. When you don't have Ken and all these other great people, I'd be happy to join you.
Thank you.
So, how did that go last week? I mean, he's great. I have him on my Facebook, and he works diligently on the foreclosure issue, and that's really great. We really need to start solving these issues one at a time or all of them together, whatever we can handle, but they need to be done. So yeah,
absolutely.
Great. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Ken has been great. Anybody else out there have any questions for Jackie?
If I may.
Go ahead.
Captain Kev again. I don't know if you were on last Thursday's call, but Schubert can attest to this. We've been discussing the PMA route for our group. I think for the marshals and maybe for the judges and administrators too. And she could be a really great resource for us on that, I think.
Absolutely. I was thinking the very same thing. I was thinking the very same thing.
That would be great.
For sure. And, okay, anybody else out there? Any questions, comments?
I just wanted to say thank you very much for coming to our call tonight and giving us all these pointers. This is Marshall Schubert.
Hi.
And that was pretty much it. It was just that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's been an amazing call. We really appreciate you being with us.
Oh, thank you. Really, thank you for having me. Once you get into this, it's really nice to have other people come in, because more people that stop contracting and stop doing business with the the psychopaths. Yeah, it's really gonna, we need to kind of move away from them and do something more creative. So, I challenge everybody out there to think of new ways for us all to proceed in peace and, without the psychopaths. So.
Excellent. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jackie, you've been absolutely awesome tonight and have given us an incredible amount of valuable information. And I want to personally thank you for all of your energy in this fight that we're in as we're making our way to liberty and freedom. And
sure.
I've taken a lot of notes here too. So once again, thank you very much, and we would love to have you back on the call again.
Thank you.
And you bet. If anyone else out there has anything that you're just dying to ask before we let Jackie off the line, please speak up now or forever hold your peace.
Charlene, this is my first time on this call, and it's been great. I mean, it's been absolutely amazing, and I just appreciate it so much, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And good luck with your newfound discoveries, and I hope you discover lots of new things and enjoy freedom.
Well, it's a little bit overwhelming at the moment. You just have to take it bite by bite, I guess.
Sure. Okay, so just to camp on that, I had a lady the other day call me. She was 93 years old, and she was very excited that she had got my name from somebody else, and it was very cute. She said, look, the government is trying to steal everything that we all have, and I want to secure my assets. And she was the most adorable, and to think that she was 93, and it's funny because she was in another state and she wanted to come to meetings, and I'm like, hold on a minute, I'm in California, and she's like, oh, but it was, it's never too late, and yes, it's just fantastic that people are kind of discovering, what's going on, and yeah.
It is absolutely great. You're right about that.
It is. Yes.
An amazing time to be alive,
Absolutely. Yeah, this is it. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, this is it. You know, and we're going to make it, you guys. I mean, we're doing things. We're breaking this into pieces and figuring out how to do to exit Babylon and correct your status. So the driver's license, big part of that.
Big part, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. I do have to go feed my cats.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Take
Jackie.
care.
And
thank you.
Take care.
Good night, everyone. Bye.
Good night. Okay, how many of you crazy kids are still out there?
I'm still here.
I am.
I had another one. I had a question for Jackie.